Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I wanted to talk about my school, Wellesley College. Not a lot of people talk about Wellesley, and there's not a lot of videos on Wellesley, at least none that are recent. Grade inflation who is she? I don't know who she is. Before we actually get into everything about Wellesley, I just wanted to talk about myself really quickly because I feel like it's important to know who I am and like what I do, because that obviously affects how I see Wellesley. So hello everyone, my name is Shayla Zamora and I am a rising sophomore at Wellesley College. I'm currently studying political science and anthropology. First thing that you need to know, it is a private, historically women's liberal arts college. That's a very long title. It sounds very pretentious, but it's very important for you to know every single word has meaning and importance. So the fact that it's private, it does mean that it is a tad bit more expensive, which we'll get on later. However, I want to touch on the historically women's college aspect because before it was an all women's institution. For now, with the times that have been changing, there is this tiny little asterisk that says that if you're born a female or if you're transitioning to be a female, then you are allowed to apply to the school. So what does that mean? It means that transgender females can go, transgender males can go. If you're non-binary but you were born a female, you're allowed to go. So there's a whole lot of gray area when you're applying to Wellesley, and I feel like that's important to say because it's not just all females. Another thing about the application process is that the application is actually free. So honestly, you're not really risking much if you want to apply but you're scared of not getting in. You literally have nothing to lose with Wellesley. A little bit more about Wellesley itself. It's about 30 minutes from Boston. We'll get to that bit later about transportation, but that's what you need to know for now. Right off the bat, you could say anything you want about Wellesley, but you cannot disagree with the fact that it's a very beautiful campus. It's 500 acres. We have our own lake. We have a little hiking trail around the lake. The buildings are beautiful and historic and kind of gothic. My friend Regina will probably know the more accurate term for architecture, but it's very, very beautiful. You would definitely love it there. Something else that I didn't really realize when I applied is that it's a very small school, approximately 2,350 students, which means that the classroom sizes are very small, the interactions are very small. As I said before, because it's private, it is really expensive. The price tag to Wellesley is currently $76,220. However, because it is private, they offer a lot of aid. In fact, Wellesley meets whatever financial need that you have, which basically means that they cover 100% of what your needs are. If you did FAFSA, they probably gave you an expected family contribution. For example, if the school costs $76,220, you just subtract the expected family contribution, and that's basically what Wellesley is going to give you, and you only have to pay the expected family contribution. If you need some more exact numbers, then they offer this amazing tool called My Intuition. It's pretty accurate both times that I've used it. It's one of the best things for me personally, one of the reasons why I chose Wellesley. Literally cheaper for me to go to Wellesley than to go to one of my home school what am I saying? It's cheaper for me to go to Wellesley than one of my home state schools and colleges. Yeah. So now we're transitioning on to housing. There has been so many questions about housing and how it works. Basically, housing is broken up by two different sides of the campus. There's east side and there's west side. In total, there are 21 residence halls. How it works for freshmen is that you get the option to choose your roommate. If you don't want to choose your roommate, then you could just fill out a questionnaire and they're going to try to match you with someone that has similar living styles as you. Please don't lie in your living style questionnaire. It should stick to what you actually do, not what you hope to do, because no matter how much you try to be how you want to be, sometimes it just doesn't add up. Like 2 and 2, like they just don't add up. So just be as truthful as you can in your questionnaire. For freshmen, you don't get to choose where you live. They randomly choose for you, so you don't really have a say in the matter. Last little tidbit of information about housing is that we do not have security guards. So whereas other colleges like BU, for example, they have security guards that check in your ID when you first come in, Wellesley does not have that. We don't have security at every single residence hall. However, we do have a swipey card thingy which we can use to get into most buildings, if not every building. If you do get the meal plan, get this. You get unlimited food. A lot of Wellesley people tend to not like the food. And yes, I agree, as a Latina, like, is definitely a little bit unflavorful. For what you get, it's a pretty good deal. I have so many friends at other colleges who pay so much more for the food and they only get like 5 swipes a week or something like that. I personally love the meal plan. I personally love not having to worry if I should go to the grocery store or not. I think you have 16 or 14 or 15, I don't really know, but you get some kind of guest passes that you could use for the whole year. It allows outside guests from the college to eat at any of the dining halls. In addition to the unlimited meal plan and the guest swipes, you also get $50 a semester to use on the Emporium and like a few other cafes, I think, which I'm not familiar with. But the Emporium is basically like a Starbucks cafe at Lulu. And then there's also like a little grocery store for snacks and drinks and popcorn and stuff like that. So you could use those $50 to like buy yourself a coffee at the Starbucks, or you could use those $50 to get a snack from the Emporium. You get $50 each semester, and whatever you don't use the first semester just rolls on over to the second semester. Speaking about guests, you are allowed to have guests sleep over in your dorms. And yes, you could have guests from the opposite sex. That is allowed. I have a few stories about a few people that they probably use this a lot to their benefit, if you catch my drift. And yes, they can use the dining halls, as said before, with the guest passes. Most bathrooms are community bathrooms. There are some like single stall bathrooms, but most of them have multiple stalls. However, most buildings and most housing like floors, they usually like allocate a specific bathroom for guests. The one thing that I do want to say about guests is that make sure that your roommate is okay with you having guests over. At the end of the day, like, you just want your roommate to be as comfortable as possible. So a lot of people are also worried about transportation. We do have transportation into Boston and out of Boston. During weekdays, the transportation is free to and from Boston, with the exception of Fridays after the 5 p.m. bus to Boston and back from Boston. During weekends and Friday nights, you have to pay $3 for 1 token. You could also get the pass that has 10 rides and it's $30, and it's just easier instead of carrying around a bunch of tokens. They also have a shuttle, which is just 1 token for both ways. That takes you to the Barnes & Noble, it takes you to the movie theater, it takes you to Target, and to a bunch of stores in that surrounding area. Did I say the mall? I think so. But the mall too. I do want to say that they can be sometimes unreliable, especially on weekend nights. It's usually overflowed, overfull. Once it reaches maximum capacity, they won't let anyone else in. An easy fix to this would just be to Uber and Lyft and split the cost with other people. However, it does get pricey if you keep on doing that. Now let's move on to academics and career exploration, etc. There are more than 50 departmental, interdepartmental majors and minors. There's so much more than 50, but this is just what they have in their website. There are very small classes with an average of 17 to 20 students per class. So it's very small, which I personally prefer because you get more one-on-one time with the professor. And also it's very beneficial for like careers when you want a letter of recommendation. They're also really huge on holding office hours with your deans, with your mentors, with your professors. So I highly recommend that you do that. Like I said, you get a ton of support. As a first year, I think I had like over 5 different mentors and deans and supportive people. You won't ever feel, I personally think, alone at Wellesley, you always have someone to talk to. It's up to you if you actually take the incentive and, you know, talk to people. I also just wanted to add really quickly that I love career education, which is basically this group of women and men who help you with your career, exploring your career, finding internships, helping you with your resume, helping you with your cover letter. They are literally a godsend. I love those ladies so much. They're so helpful. It's definitely a resource that I know that a lot of other colleges don't offer, so I definitely recommend that you take advantage of this. Something very important that I have to mention is that there is no longer any grade inflation. I don't even want to talk about grade inflation because it's pretty insignificant now, but basically it was very unfair. It was an unfair grading system. In case you're watching old videos, grade inflation is no longer a thing, so don't worry about it. Something really cool that Wellesley also does that I really want to mention is that there is shadow grading, which basically means that for your first semester, everyone has to do pass fail. It's just a really great opportunity to take some classes that you probably wouldn't have taken. It's a good opportunity to kind of transition into college. It's a whole new experience. So I personally wouldn't want to overwhelm myself, especially in the first semester. So that's a really cool opportunity that Wellesley offers. So another note about academics is that you take 4 classes each semester for a total of 8 classes in a school year. You could take potentially 5 classes, like 5 academic classes, but you have to have like a reason for it, and you have to talk to your dean, and it's a whole ass struggle. So 4 classes, ladies and gents, 4 classes. These classes are broken up by 3 levels. There are 100 levels, 200 levels, and 300 levels. 100 levels are like the easiest, 300 levels are the hardest. I mostly took 100 levels for my first year, and I also took a few 200 levels. It's up to you and how confident you feel about a specific topic. And also, depending on your major, there might be some courses that you have to take that are 100 levels, or you have to take that are 200 levels. And I think almost every course or every major you have to take like at least 2 or 3 300 levels eventually. There are also distribution requirements on top of your major requirements, and sometimes they overlap. These are the recent distribution requirements, or the distribution requirements that I received. Yeah, can you believe that we have to take PE? That's insane. Insane, I tell you. Another really cool that Wellesley does is that they actually have like relationships, I guess. What is it called? They have cross-registration with a few schools. They have cross-registration with Babson, Olin, Brandeis, and MIT. That's a really cool opportunity for you to take classes that aren't necessarily offered at Wellesley. Another thing that I find really cool is that for midterms and for finals, you get to choose when you take your midterms and finals. That's a really cool flexibility that you can have. You could go home a little bit earlier if you decide to plan them all like on Monday or Tuesday of finals week. I didn't mean midterms. You cannot choose when to take midterms, but you can choose when to take finals. The honor code is basically this statement, which is going to be everywhere on Wellesley. It says, as a Wellesley College student, I will act with honesty, integrity, and respect. In making this commitment, I am accountable to the community and dedicate myself to a life of honor. And they take this very seriously. The honor code is basically doing what you should be doing. We are allowed to choose our finals because of the honor code, because there's this mutual agreement within the community that's like, okay, I'm not going to disclose any answers to anyone else, or I'm not going to disclose any questions to anyone else, so that they don't have an unfair advantage. So they take that very seriously, and there's actually an honor code council, so you do not want to get mixed up with them because they're very strict with the honor code. There's a few traditions, which is what I really liked about Wellesley, because I love just the idea of like a sisterhood and just like being around people that are empowering you. There's Stepsinging, which is basically when everyone at the beginning of the year like stands on like some steps and they start singing. It's very self-explanatory. I'll link the website so that you guys could read more about it. There's also this really fun kind of Zamora-like Flower Sunday, which if you saw my previous video about Wellesley, you'll know what Flower Sunday is, but it's basically when you're paired with a big sister, and they give you flowers on a Sunday, and then you go to the church, and there's this whole, there's not a service, but there's a lot of performances, a lot of speeches, have breakfast together. There's There's also hoop rolling, which is for seniors. Basically, there's a hoop and then there's a stick and you roll the hoop and there's a race, and the person who wins the race basically gets like their biggest goals accomplished, or it's like super successful in the future. So Marathon Monday is basically the day of the Boston Marathon. Wellesley is the midpoint of the marathon, so we do this thing called a scream tunnel, which is basically Wellesley girls just aligned by the road and they scream at the Boston Marathoners. There's also this really nice tradition where sophomores each year in the fall during parent family weekend, I think, they plant a tree in the Wellesley, like on the Wellesley campus, and it's really nice because if you walk around you see a bunch of trees with rocks on the bottom, and it's the year, and there's some as early as like 1870 something. Like it's a very nice tradition and it's really cool. I think the first one was, yeah, it dates back to 1879. There's also this tradition called traying. So in Zev Hall, there's this thing called Zev Hill, which is a very big hill right next to Tower Court. And basically when there's a lot of snow, people used to get trays from the dining halls and they would just tray down the, like they'd use it as like a sled. The last tradition that I want to talk to you guys about is the assigning of a color. So there's 4 different colors: green, purple, red, and yellow. I'm the yellow class. I love yellow. I love yellow and blue together, hence. Last but not least, let's talk about social life. I'm going to be very brief because I talked a lot about the social life in my previous video, which you should probably watch. In a nutshell, there's a lot of social life. There's a lot of people who say that there's not a social life, but there is. Like, there's always going to be someone there for you. There's a lot of like in-campus parties. There's a lot of parties with our cross-registered schools. There's also a ton of clubs. There's a ton of activities to do. We're also right next to Boston, so that means that you could probably go to a ton of cool activities. You could go to rallies, you could go to political activities, you could go to concerts, you could go to festivals, you could go to a ton of things, you could go to restaurants. There's a social life. You just need to like find your people. If you want more opinion-based videos on Wellesley, if you want more political videos on Wellesley, I'd be very happy to explain, specifically as a Latina woman at Wellesley, which is I think the smallest demographic at Wellesley currently. I definitely have a lot of things to say and if you're interested in watching that, please leave a comment below. It is however you make it to be. You could have a very sucky time at Wellesley if you make it that way. You could have an excellent time at Wellesley. You could have so much fun. It's almost like a perfect school for you at Wellesley if you make it that way. There's so many opportunities and resources at Wellesley that a lot of other schools do not offer, which is why it was my main choice. That's all I have to say about Wellesley. I'm talking a lot with my hands, I'm sorry. If I missed anything, I really tried to cover everything, but very short time. But if I did miss anything, please leave a comment down below. Please also go follow me on my socials, subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content that's Wellesley related. That's it for me. So have a beautiful, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time.